Gardening is changing, and the next 10 years are going to look very different than the last 10. Not in the way headlines like to blare and trumpet, but in quieter, more meaningful ways. And if you garden in shade, you're already living in the future. This is not a how-to video. This is not a trends video. This is my New Year's prediction. Before we go any further, let me introduce myself. I'm Michelle, and I'm new here, new to YouTube, and still fairly new to the nursery business too. Although I've grown hostas for 30 years. Where does the time go? As we step into the next 10 years of gardening, I think it's worth asking, what kind of gardeners are we becoming? What kind of gardens do we want to live with? And what kind of gardening can we do within the limits of changing housing in our society? Let's start with something practical. Gardens are getting smaller. Lots are shrinking. Homes are closer together. Some households appreciate apartments and condos. My mom recently downsized. She moved from a home into an apartment. She used to have large, beautiful gardens, complete with large, beautiful hostas. She gave me Empress Woo and Humpback Whale. Now she has a patio. No, not a patio, a balcony, about the size of my dining table. Room for a couple chairs, room for a couple flower pots, and she grows hostas. She's fortunate to have a covered balcony, so she has shade, and she grows her hostas on her balcony, along with some herbs and a few other things that she loves. But she has space, even in her small apartment, to have a garden in pots, and that's okay. We have limits on resources too. Time, money, water. In many cases, shade is increasing, not disappearing. But what's interesting is this. As garden space shrinks, attachment grows. People aren't trying to garden everything anymore. They're choosing a few things and caring deeply about what they choose. This is where hosta gardeners have always been ahead of the curve. You don't plant a hosta for instant gratification. Okay, we do love the instant gratification. We plant hostas, however, to enjoy for years. They live a long, long time. We live with our hostas. We appreciate them. We notice how they're growing. We compare them to how they did last year. And we remember their names, where they came from, the person who shared the hosta with us, whether they physically gave us part of their hosta, or whether they just told us about it and we went out and found our own. This mindset, patience, observation, restraint, it's not old-fashioned, it's the future. It's the future I see in the next 10 years. Shade used to be treated like a problem to solve. Now it's becoming a place people seek out, because shade offers something we're all craving more of. It offers quiet and respite, softness and relief. The next decade of gardening won't be about dominating the landscape. We've tried that. Carpets of front lawns. It will be about belonging in your garden, fitting into your landscape. It will be about layered gardens, woodland edges, north-facing borders and patios and balconies, courtyards that feel like exhalations. Hostas don't shout, they hold their place. And that's not just aesthetic, it's emotional too. Here's something I don't hear talked about enough. Gardening is becoming one of the last places where people feel real autonomy. Work is noisier, life is faster, technology is everywhere. We had that spell a while back where everyone was running marathons, starting with a 5K, training, managing their schedule, managing their work, managing their effort as they built up to be able to run a marathon. Gardens do that for people too. They give us autonomy. They give us control. In the garden, you decide what stays. You decide what grows. And you decide what matters. Whether it's pollinators, or natives, or maybe hostas and other shade plants. Hosta gardeners, especially collectors, understand this instinctively. They're not chasing trends. They're building relationships with each other and with the plants that they choose. The plants with so many different attributes, colors, size, texture, shape. They're building relationships with those plants, and they're assembling a collection of plants that are unique, unusual, and special to them. That's my kind of gardening. It isn't about productivity. It's about presence. It's about being in the garden, enjoying the quiet rhythm of the natural world. There's a myth that hosta collectors are disappearing. I don't believe that for a minute. I think what's disappearing is something else. Gardening has become more commercial, more transactional. You buy a plant, you plant it, you move on. And with that shift, we've lost some of the relationship that used to come with gardening. Many people don't know their neighbors the way they once did. They don't swap divisions over the fence. They don't trade seeds or pass plants hand to hand. You ever drive through an older neighborhood and see Jack Manny clematis growing on this house and that house and the next house? Maybe you see the same hostas growing in somebody's yard and their neighbor's yard and their neighbor's yard. We don't see that as much anymore. We just don't swap divisions over the fence, and we don't trade seeds or pass plants hand to hand. But that's okay, because gardeners didn't stop wanting connection. They just found it in new places, and they will continue to find it in new places over the next 10 years. Today, gardeners want names. They want stories. They want history. They want intention to go with their plants, because they don't have it with their neighbors or their neighbors' gardens as much as they used to. We want to know what we're planting, really. We want to share photos with friends, sometimes friends we've never met. We're finding community in Facebook groups, forums, and Reddit threads, and I think that will continue in the next 10 years. We're learning lineage, backstories, and quirks from people halfway across the country. The relationships among gardeners didn't disappear. It moved, and so did collecting. Gone are the days of planting neat rows of green hostas along a sidewalk or circling a tree with the same plant just because that's what was done. Looks like a petticoat on a tree. We don't do that anymore. We change it up. We vary it. We each do our own thing in the garden. We're asking more of our gardens now. Not tidiness, not uniformity. We're looking for refuge, for autonomy, for something that belongs to us. Something to care for and something to care about. The future belongs to gardeners who want names and stories and history and intention, whether we're talking about hostas, natives, pollinator-friendly, shrubs that are new or unique or old and classic. Whether you're a lifelong collector or someone who just planted their first named hosta, that curiosity, what is this plant really? What does it do in my garden? What does it do for the environment, for the pollinators? That's the heartbeat of the next decade. Gardeners don't just preserve plants, they preserve memory, and that matters more than ever. If you're watching this and thinking, I don't have a garden like that, think yet. Here's the good news. You don't age into gardening, you grow into it. Houseplants are often the first chapter. Balconies are the second. Shade gardens come when life opens the door. Hostas will still be here. They'll be waiting, growing, and patient. You'll arrive when you arrive. Gardening, especially shade gardening or hosta gardening, is not a hobby you miss out on. It's one you arrive at. And you're welcome to join us. The next decade doesn't need louder gardeners. It needs thoughtful gardeners, observant gardeners, generous gardeners. It needs gardeners who let plants mature, who resist the rush, who care more about belonging to their garden than perfection in their garden. If you garden in the shade, if you love hostas, or if you love any other perennials and shrubs, you care about the long view. You're not behind, you're early. This year, and in the years ahead, I want to spend more time here, talking about shade gardens that feel lived in, hostas with stories, plants worth waiting for, and what it really means to garden well, not fast. We won't talk about all these things every week, not even every season, but we'll talk thoughtfully about them when they matter. If you love hostas, shade gardens, and the real rhythm of our natural world, not just the pretty parts, although I love the pretty parts, you're in the right place here, and you're always welcome at Hosta Heaven. Happy New Year. Until the next chapter in the Hosta Garden.